right here is a bit of an old topic, but at the same time, though, I think a lot of us may have seen this coming, especially with the wokening or the social justice warring of our military. Guys, this video was actually, believe it or not, made last week, but I think that I need to come back and actually come back. And I felt like I needed to redo it because there's some points that, quite frankly, I missed. So West Point is removing statues. They're removing the bust of Robert E. Lee, anything involving the Confederacy. They're removing it. And you're probably thinking to yourself, as a guy who's from the South, obviously this right here is probably going to hurt. No, I think it's more along the lines of this right here is not so much something that you would say is hurtful or anything. What it is it is just flat out stupid. You see, one of the reasons why West Point exists is so that way officers can be trained on military tactics, military history. They need to be trained on all that stuff. And removing Robert E. Lee, I think, is just more symbolism of the country basically going in a direction of flat out pure leftism. Now, guys, I got to make a point, okay? And I want to make this very clear. Most nations that adopted communism or socialism, which, by the way, I don't think you're ever going to be able to implement here in the United States, which I'm probably going to do a video on the Claymore channel at some point in time, because the country is so divided within itself, you would never be able to actually implement it. Regardless of what happens, they just would not be able to fully implement it. It may look like it, but you're never going to be able to fully, full-on actually implement it. Not to mention the fact that the vast majority of the lefties, they live inside cities, and they're not going to be able to get beyond those cities if they decide to actually go to war with anybody who lives in rural or small-town America. Like I said, we'll be doing more videos on that in the future, especially 2023. The thing is this right here, one of the things that these people did was they wanted to remove anything from their past statues, anything that resembled the past, and it's never a good idea to do that. You see, even me, I'm in favor of leaving all statues up, unless, of course, they're statues that are just quite frankly obscene. I don't believe in that at all. But, of course, there's even like a statue of, like, Lenin in Seattle, Washington. Now, guys, I'm as ardent anti-communist as you can get, but I'm not exactly okay with telling them they had to remove the statue, because it's obviously a leftist crap hole. So if they want to keep that up, I'll let them keep that up. Seattle's already gone anyways. But the fact of the matter is that when you start removing certain leaders, and I think it was Donald Trump who said that, look, if you remove one, when is it going to stop? He was 100% correct. You've had calls to remove George Washington. You've had calls to remove Thomas Jefferson. You've had calls to remove just about anybody and everybody who was ever a part of the founding of America. Now, somebody's going to say Robert E. Lee is not a part of the founding of America. No, but I do think that Robert E. Lee is definitely a part of the refounding of America. And what I mean by that is this here. You see, a lot of people don't understand this about the Civil War. Robert E. Lee, and this right could require a project at a later date, Robert E. Lee actually inherited his slaves from his father-in-law. He was not okay with slavery. He was actually against the art of slavery, the act of it. After the war was over with, he actually went out of his way to try to help unify the country. There's this famous image of him praying next to a black man shortly after the war. Now, you're probably thinking just it's mostly symbolic, but Robert E. Lee was very, very much kind of a gentle, benevolent person. He was a great general, but he obviously made a few very, very bad errors, and we'll talk about that here in a second, because you need to have those statues up for other reasons outside of just, let's say, military tactics or anything. You need to have those statues up, and I'm going to go through here in a second. Fact of the matter is that Robert E. Lee was not okay with slavery. However, he joined the South, obviously, because he felt that the South was home. He was from Virginia. Arlington House was right there across the street from Washington, D.C. itself. As a matter of fact, that's Arlington National Cemetery. That actually used to be his land, or it used to be his father's land. Fact of the matter is that Robert E. Lee was important in refounding America, because when the Civil War was over, when they signed when they actually signed the treaty, or they signed the truce itself, Robert E. Lee's men could have been charged with treason. They were not. Grant obviously chose not to pursue it, no matter how much Abraham Lincoln may have wanted. Which, by the way, in reality, Lincoln, I'm doing some studying on Lincoln, and I'm not going to say anything about Lincoln right now, but just know that there could be some stuff involving him in the near future. But the fact of the matter is this right here. Grant chose not to pursue punishment of these individuals. Basically, put your rifles down and go home, and let's reunite the country. People forget that not too long after Appomattox, which is really weird because the war began in a guy's front yard and then it ended in the guy's parlor, McLean's parlor. That's another story on its own. May even require an actual story here on this channel because it doesn't do a military history. The thing is this here. There was another incident like a week or so later. Okay, it was the Battle of Bentonville. Bentonville, of course, is a battlefield that is located right here in my home state. It's located right outside of Goldsboro, right between Goldsboro and Smithfield, North Carolina. And it was Joe Johnston and William Tecumseh Sherman's army. They fought, and they eventually got together, and basically the same deal that was given to Lee was given to Johnston. Basically, the idea would be, look, man, just put your weapons home, just put your weapons down and go home, and let's bring the country back together. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, what does this got to do with the statue? Well, you need to have the statue up so that way people can know that, hey, look, not only did this guy fight for the Confederacy, not only did he also at one point in time fight for the Union, because he actually did. He was obviously in the U.S. military before he switched to the Confederacy. This guy's tactics are practiced all over the world. He's one of the greatest generals to ever live. He's one of the greatest generals in American history. He may be the most beloved if you actually think about it. But it's not just that right there, but you need to have that statue there. As a matter of fact, I am more than okay with dueling statues, meaning Grant and Lee both beside one another, or maybe a statue of them signing the actual truce at Appomattox Courthouse. You see, the thing is this for Appomattox Parlor, but whichever one you want to say. Fact of the matter is that students need to understand, young officers need to understand that the countries, they need to understand not only the military history and the history behind the Civil War, they need to understand the actual history of how the country got back together. These young, impressionable minds that are going to be leading our troops in the combat someday, they need to actually know this stuff. They also need to know the tactics, too. So I don't think it's a good idea to remove Robert E. Lee. It's a horrible idea. Caving to wokeness is just going to get men killed at some point in time, especially if you have wokeness in the military. It's just going to make them all biased against one another's race. It's just an extremely bad idea, and I've talked about this on several occasions. I don't think I need to rehash it, but the fact of the matter is that you need to have Lee up so that way you can study the man, study the tactics, so that way your men will actually know. By the way, for all of Robert E. Lee, and I love Robert E. Lee, all of Robert E. Lee's success in the Civil War, there were obviously some failures. Pickett's charge was definitely a failure. It was a bad idea. He should have redeployed his men like Longstreet said. By the way, I think all Confederate generals, they need to stay up as well as all Northern generals. People need to know the actual truth about Union generals. Not all of these Union generals were good generals. Burnside was one of the worst. All you got to do is just look at the damn crater incident during Petersburg. Look at Fredericksburg. The guy was an absolute joke. He was trash. Joe Hooker wasn't a strong general either. And if you look at Ulysses S. Grant overall, you'll see that the man is actually pretty freaking overrated. Guys, with that right there being said, GearIssue33 here. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. There's going to be one more video out this week to go along with the updates video on YouTube's policies today on this channel. That video will be released on Wednesday. I explain in the updates video why it is releasing content every other day and why the Fury Project could be out on Friday or Saturday. So make sure you guys stick around for that. Also, leave a comment in the comment section. I want to get you guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.